Welcome to Chile, Japan.
Yes, we have sweatshirts on because it's
It's
cold.
cold.
So, we want to make a video today talking about why we feel after traveling here for 6 months now.
Almost 6 months.
Yeah. Why Asia is probably the best place to start your travels if you're not sure where you want to go. Now, obviously, hopefully you've traveled the world. Maybe you love Mexico or Central America and Costa Rica or any one of a million places in Europe that are amazing. But if you don't know where you want to go, we think Asia is great. Now, there's several reasons. One is cost of living is generally pretty darn good here. I think the food's amazing. I love it. I know you have a little issue some places.
Yeah, that the smell of fish everywhere is not my favorite thing to do, but you might love it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yep.
And the cities are amazing. The countries are beautiful. When you get out of the cities, there's so much to do. Is it as advanced as some other places? Not everywhere, but the cities of Bangkok and Singapore and Hanoi and I mean they're all first class cities. You know, may have little issues with pollution because they haven't had the same environmental regulations that we had for the last generation, but they're getting there. And so much of it with the transportation and the buildings and the malls and all that has been truly amazing. But
Especially in Thailand. Yes,
yeah,
it's amazing.
yeah. So after traveling for 3 years and living for a year in Portugal and doing some exploring in Europe,
Mhm.
um, we kind of were thinking, like, where would we tell ourselves or our friends to start? And we thought, well, this makes a really good topic for a video because there are a lot of people out there who are either thinking or actively planning on leaving the States right now. Maybe you're, being retired before you wish you were, or you've reached your number and you want to get out. Um, we used to think Europe was the easiest place to go, would be the best place to go. It's still an amazing place, but it's not that easy on the travel side if you're not going to get a full visa because you only get 90 days in the Schengen zone. And if you don't know what that is a group of countries across Europe, includes some areas around Europe. Um, they're now 30 countries, and so many of the countries that you used to be able to leave, you know, not regular what we all think of as Europe as the France, Germany, Spain, et cetera. They're now they're now part of the Schengen, and so after 90 days you have to leave, and it makes travel kind of a pain because it's hard to explore just Italy or France or Spain in 90 days if you're
Mm.
really trying to experience it.
Yeah, unfortunately, with the changing situation, is you spend a lot of money for such a short period of time that is, I don't know, I think it's not worth it.
Yeah, it's an expensive 3 months because housing has gotten very expensive there. There aren't a lot of cheap hotels in the major cities, and unless you really want to spend a lot of money on a rental car or a camper van to drive around, you're kind of have to stay in the cities with good transportation. Now, we stayed in Paris. It was great. We didn't need a car. We were able to take trains and subways and all that and get around easily. But the apartment was $2,500 a month. So, there's 2/3 of our budget just for that. And we hadn't even had a bite of food yet.
Hmm.
So, and just think about it. If you tried to spend a couple of weeks in every country, you'd need a couple of years to try them all out, spending 90 days at a time there. And then you have to be out of the Schengen zone for 90 days. So when we were there, before we got our visa, we were, spending time in Spain and Portugal. And then we would go to Turkey for, 90 days or, get out some other direction. And, we just find it to be less feasible and less cost effective than being able to just travel other parts of the world and spend 2 and 3 months per country and move around. And so hopefully
Hmm.
someday there'll be some sort of Schengen visa that allows you to stay for 6 months or maybe a whole year. But for right now, that's definitely a negative for a place to start because you're going to have to leave about the time you get comfortable with the travel lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you start thinking about like Central America from Mexico on down through South America, now
Hmm.
you have a ton of countries and every one of them lets you come in, most without a visa, for 30, 60, and a lot of them 90 days as an American or Canadian. So check, things are changing with the whole interactions between countries. But if you do head that direction, you can spend an entire year, 2 years, just traveling between countries and never have to worry about it. You can move every time you get close to the visa. But there's a little more issues with transportation and safety. So that's up to you. But that's why we feel Asia is the best.
Yeah, we the time we have spent in Asia is been. I haven't feel nervous or what other word I can use for that? Like
Unsafe.
unsafe, exactly. The entire time that we have been there, and of course, we don't go a lot in the night. We don't party.
No bar hopping here.
No, not get drunk in the middle of the night or going to clubs, but, which is, I would say safety recommendation. But I think Asia have shown us the kind people and safe and good in so many ways.
Yeah, and now we spent 2 months in Thailand because they have a 60-day policy for U.S. citizens and others. Um, I can't remember exactly how many countries now get 60 days on arrival. Now you can extend for 30 more days by going into immigration and get an appointment and pay a fee. Um, Personally, at 60 days, it's okay to cross the border, go somewhere else, whether you go for a few days or a few weeks or a few months to some other country and then go back to Thailand. It all resets. Now, there is a new visa out this past year or this year or at the beginning of the year called the Destination Thailand Visa, which is a 6 month or 180-day, so not exactly 6 month visa. And you basically just have to go out of the country and come back, and it is a new 6 months. You could spend, every day. You just have to leave the country and get a new stamp, and that starts the clock over again. And it only costs, I think, about $400. So, if you're going to spend a ton of time in Thailand, that's something to look at. But as we've said in other videos, it's a great country, but half the year is kind of hard weather. So,
Yeah, if you really don't care, the sometime in the in the year it's raining a lot. I mean, according to some friends that we have that they're from there, some parts of the year just rain half of the day and then the sun come out. So if you don't really care about that kind of situation, you can stay longer.
yeah,
And also, I think the visa recommendation that we're giving you is one of those things that you need to do the research because things are changing really fast.
yeah. But just as a regular traveler, 60 days. And that is plenty of time to explore a part of the country. It's a big country, but if you want to hang around the Bangkok and central Thailand, 6 days is a nice amount of time, and moving on to another country, and then you can come back whenever you feel like it when the weather and everything else lines up for you. Now, we
Hmm.
went from there to Vietnam. Vietnam is a 90-day visa, only costs $25 for a visa to enter single entry. So you're staying for as many days up to 90 that you want. If you want to bounce in and out of Vietnam, to Cambodia, Laos, Japan, whatever, Korea, then you would get a multi-entry visa, which costs twice as much, so $50 a person. Um,
Which is still very affordable.
yeah, and again, 90 days in Vietnam, you can explore the whole country if you're fast. You can explore a couple of, a good chunk of northern Vietnam or southern Vietnam, depending on which one has the better weather. There are, amazing beaches, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's, if you've watched a video about Vietnam, If you haven't, please ask in questions. We're happy to answer because we have spent almost 90 days there, and we're going back because we enjoyed it that much.
Hmm.
Um, Great country. Um, Japan, again, another country, allows you to come for 90 days. And so we are, exploring the country and chasing the cherry blossoms. And now that they've just about passed, now we're off to kind of hit a couple of major cities before we leave and head back to Vietnam. But another country that gives you a good amount of time to explore. I will mention that Japan has much higher transportation costs.
The transportation is a little bit a little bit higher.
Oh, it's a lot higher. They don't have,
Especially if you're using the bullet train.
yeah. So not only the bullet train has gotten from, being a $40 and $50 fun experience, it's now $100 kind of base cost to go almost anywhere. And
Mm-hmm.
when you take a multi-hour trip to another part of the islands, you can spend a couple $100 pretty easily. So factor that in. There are some discount airlines if you can plan it in advance. Great, you could probably get some pretty cheap flights. But I do recommend at least one experience on the bullet train. It's kind of cool.
It is very cool.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing about Asia, one of the reasons we're here, it's a lower cost of living environment. Almost all these countries are much cheaper, even here in Japan, which people think is so expensive. And, in the major cities, it can get expensive. But we're averaging, $30 to $40 for our big meal out, usually like one combined lunch dinner, $30 or $40 for two people, and it's filling. We're not talking just getting ramen. We're talking getting a full meal. Yeah, that's not bad compared to what we were spending just to go out and maybe have a happy hour in the U.S.
Yeah, exactly. The only thing is a little bit more expensive in here is the sushi. But of course, sushi is expensive, I guess, everywhere in the world.
What do you know? You
And
don't eat it.
I do. Shush.
Just not the fish part of the sushi.
Exactly.
She likes the tempura. So,
but I mean, this is the place to have the sushi. So if you decide to spend a little bit more one time in a week, that's good.
Yeah, you can spend as much as you want on sushi here. There are some amazing places, but you can also go get really good conveyor belt sushi or pick up. I like to go to the markets, the fish markets and stuff, and you get a block of tuna and they'll cut it into sashimi for you. And then all you need is a little rice.
Mm-hmm.
And you can pick that up for almost nothing. Plus, there's great street food and stuff. So we've really found it's not that expensive here to eat. It's a lot cheaper to eat when you're staying in a really nice hotel that gives you food and has a lounge, but we have not been staying in those as much.
Different story.
Yeah, that's a different lifestyle. That watch our other videos about that.
Exactly. Watch the videos about the points, and in that way you can save a lot.
Yeah. The other part about Asia is it is very safe. Again, we've never had any issues. We don't feel any issues. We've used doctors, hospitals, pharmacies in every country. Nothing major, but still we've had to do it. And, we've never had an issue in the hospital, and everything's been first class and no issues with language, etc. So, so another reason that I believe strongly, and I think you agree, to stay or to start, that Asia would be a great place for people to start traveling is it's pretty easy to move around.
Yeah, it's very easy. There's so many, especially in Vietnam, there's so many, Grab, Uber, no Uber.
Their version of Uber.
Version of Uber
is Grab.
Yeah, exactly. The motorcycles, and
if you're
tuk-tuk.
if you're hop on the back of a motorcycle, we're not that, but hey, great. There are tuk-tuks in some of these places.
Yeah.
But there's trains. Vietnam is not great with trains, but there are some. They have these night buses which have full beds, bunk beds that you get on a bus and go, because amazingly, Vietnam is an incredibly long country. So between the major cities along the coast, it's a long ways, and they're building trains, and they do have some low-cost airlines to get around. So if you plan ahead, as I said, you can get some pretty good deals. Thailand has amazing transportation in most of the major cities.
The trains are amazing over there.
Yeah, we had no problem with the trains when we were going down to Hua Hin. We took buses over to other places. So really, transportation was really good, I think. And you also, the other part of that is just from an international travel perspective, either coming or going, coming from the States or coming from Europe, or traveling around. There are so many major hubs here to find a way to get here. So you have Singapore and Hong Kong and Bangkok and Hanoi and Seoul and Tokyo. It just, the list of places that you can fly to. And that's another little trick for transportation costs is sometimes it's cheaper to fly, a Japan Airlines or one of the Japanese carriers up to Tokyo and down onto a Bangkok or Kuala Lumpur or whatever. And that's cheaper than just flying to Japan. So sometimes you might be like, oh, I really want to start in Tokyo. Well, if you can cut your transportation costs in half by flying to Bangkok first or Kuala Lumpur first, go experience those cities first. Other than when you have a time of year you really want to be someplace like cherry blossoms,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there's no reason not to bounce around. Just check the weather and make sure you're going at the right time of year, because no place is very much fun in monsoon season. The other great thing about starting in Asia is it is a very cost effective, inexpensive place generally. Singapore is expensive. Tokyo is expensive. Bangkok really isn't that expensive.
No,
Yeah.
actually not.
Yeah.
Yeah, thinking about that, it was so many ways to save some money and cut your or keep your budget, low.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And compared to, a vacation in Hawaii or even Mexico or, Europe as we lived there, our costs can be close to half over here than it was in most other places, and a third to a quarter of what it was in the States. So, really, it is a great place to start, because you aren't going to blow your budget up like some of us did in Australia and New Zealand and Spain and all those places we went our first year, because we were really bad at planning. We treated it like a vacation, but said that before.
Yeah, I think also one of the most things that people keep in their minds is, what if they don't speak English? So almost everybody speak English. Only in the rurals, in the outside the big cities, is where you can find a little bit difficult, or people
Yeah.
doesn't speak English very well. But Google, thank God for Google.
Yeah, the translation programs work pretty well. I will say the younger generation has
Hmm.
been taught English over the last, 30, 40 years. It's become so much more prevalent, especially as these countries are coming through. So I was truly amazed in Vietnam, at the hotels, especially. Some of the people, their English was better than ours. And really, we haven't had very many problems. And when we have, like, we've gone to these little hole in the wall restaurants, and Google Translate, you can literally, have your camera take a picture,
Hmm.
of the menu, and it'll translate it for you. And then you pick what you want. You just point. You can speak into it and have it speak to them. It takes a little bit of effort, but it really isn't hard. And it's kind of a little bit of a bonding experience, because you mess things up and they laugh, but you learn the basic words and you'll get along. And there's such nice people here. We have not run
Yes.
into a lot of that um, anti-American sentiment or anything like that. So
Mm-mm.
uh,
They're always trying to cooperate and to teach you, or at least they make the effort to understand.
yeah,
The other thing that I really appreciate about this part of the world is the reach of the culture.
yes, culture, the sites, the history, because we haven't even been to China, which is a whole nother huge, amazing place.
Hmm.
But just these places we've been, the temples, the shrines, the palaces, the vistas and the mountains. I mean, it's everything, and so much older, than where we're from. Now, Europe was similar to that, but Europe has, been bombed and had these wars for all these years, and so much of it is ruins. And over here, it got, like, places got lost to the jungle. The people were wiped out, and then but the cities are still there, and so you get to see these things. And you know a lot of places have been restored, a lot of places are, um, maintained by the ruling class.
Hmm.
It's been truly gorgeous just walking around. I mean, the gardens themselves outside the palaces are amazing, let alone the buildings.
Yeah.
One that we skipped over there was the food. If you
Yes.
think you like Thai food, or if you've had Vietnamese food back at home, um, where do you have it local? And I'm not talking just, we don't eat spicy food, so that's not what we're talking about. We're just talking about the flavors of things, because they grow their food here. It's not being imported from other countries generally.
Hmm.
Um, so you just get this amazing fruits and vegetables, and the quality of the meat is excellent now. You don't have to worry about that stuff as long as you go to the right places. There are a few places in the rural parts that we were like, oh yeah, maybe we'll eat vegetarian or something. But still, it really has been. When we had an apartment for a week and a half and did some cooking, it was just, everything tasted so good.
Hmm. I agree.
Yeah. And you can find cheap meals. You can go get a banh mi in Vietnam for $1 or $2. You can get ramen here for $5 or less. You can get in Thailand fried rice or whatever the other things that we like to eat there. I can't remember all the different things we loved.
The veggie soup is
Yeah,
amazing.
just
The
stuff like that.
broth, yeah.
Yeah,
The
we had the same thing in Portugal. I mean, in Portugal, you can get great food for a couple bucks in a lot of places. I mean, we'd
mhm.
go out and have a full sit down meal with drinks for $15-$20. I mean, you know, it's like I said, when we go home or when we talk to our kids about what life is like going out there, it is just
Insane.
yeah. So that's why we say, you'll find a lot out here in the world to be thankful for. Not just because everything is it's new experiences and amazing. So specific countries, we just quickly go through. Again, Thailand, 60 days without a visa. You can extend for 30 days. They have the DTV that can go up to 100 days and 180 days, and it's good for 5 years. So you basically spend every day for 5 years in Thailand if you wanted to. Bangkok is one of my favorite cities. Absolutely loved it as a big giant city because of the train system, the river, the boats and ferries on the
Mine
river.
too. Yeah, it's so much to see in there, so much to do.
I hadn't gotten to the malls yet. The shopping there is tremendous between the markets and then the malls, and then every place we went, night markets and food, street food and all that. I mean, Thailand is it's a very cool country and a great place to start because it's almost impossible to blow your budget there. So
Yeah.
Vietnam, again, it's 90 days e-visa. You can actually stay 30 days without a visa. So if you're just going to stop in for a few weeks, you don't even need to get a visa. Well, at least that's what it says on the web, but make sure you check. Malaysia is on our list. We're actually going there later this year. It is another 90-day without a visa for, again, Americans and many others. Everything we've seen, everything we've read, our friends who've been there just love Kuala Lumpur. There are, I don't even know how many islands and beach areas to go to. So we are, just beginning our planning because we're not going there for a few months. But that one's definitely we're excited about.
Yes.
Yep. And then Japan, as we mentioned, 90 days without a visa for Americans and others. And, again, these countries are so much bigger than you think. When you actually look at them, Japan stretches from, almost Alaska to, Southern California, even Mexico, by the time you get down to Okinawa. So there's lots to see, lots of different climates, lots of different areas, huge mountain ranges, truly immense, amazing, cities and food and temples and all that stuff. So, I love Japan. It's a little on the expensive side for our budget. So if your budget's a little bigger than ours, Japan should definitely be on the list, and you should come, even if it's not, just plan accordingly like we are and bounce between lower cost areas and Japan. Yeah. And then, obviously you've got Singapore and Korea and South Korea. And some other smaller countries and other countries that we haven't even listed yet. So, and that doesn't get into India and others. So much to see and do in this area, so many options. And as you can see, if you add up the number of months you can stay in these countries, you've gone well over a year and you haven't repeated any place. So again, we think Asia is a great place to start, especially Southeast Asia if you want to work on your budget. It's, again, amazing food. You can get access to anything you need, from clothing to healthcare to medicines to transportation. Don't worry, you're not going to be missing out on anything.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. And we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.